Hello everyone, I am Jack, and this is a kind of unscripted rant, if you want to put it that way. I've tried doing this video a few times, I've never quite gotten it the way that I wanted it, but we'll see where we go with this. So what it is this, and I want everyone who kind of watches this to maybe take part, in the comments, just sort of what do you guys think? Is there anything that you agree with or disagree with? Points, the usual stuff. As I just randomly walk around my ship here. And it's just... There's so much crying and complaining going on in Spectrum and Reddit about certain things that I think should really be addressed. I think CIG really needs to get on top of this, and I want to know what everyone's opinion is on this. What do you all think in this particular sort of situation? Now, that is quite simply the Swiss Army ship. Now, I made this comment in the last video I just did with the Apollo medevac, is that not every ship should be able to do everything. And not every ship should be able to do something that the ship is not designed to do. So the example obviously that I used with the Apollo medevac was it shouldn't have easily accessible cargo, like the cargo grids, and it shouldn't have a rear ramp for a vehicle. Because it is a medical ship, it doesn't need it. If you want to transport a vehicle, get a vehicle transport ship, like the Valkyrie or the Constellation even. If you want to take a NURSAC, get a Constellation, that thing can do it. But the Apollo medevac and triage are not vehicle transport ships, so therefore it shouldn't have it. Again, in my opinion. Ships like the Idris has also been on the chat about the whole complaining, if you will, about the whole Tier 1 medbed situation. It doesn't need it. It is a patrol ship, yes. It's it's supposed to go out and it's the hero ship and squadron, blah blah blah. But it doesn't need a Tier 1 medical bed. And why? Because it's not a hospital ship. Tier 1 beds should be reserved for medical facilities on space stations, perhaps, if there's an actual dedicated hospital wing. So when we get these craftable space stations, for example, maybe the Bengal carrier might have a hospital, an actual hospital on board. That might have Tier 1 beds. And hospital ships like the Hope class Endeavour would have Tier 1 beds. Everything else should either be Tier 2 or Tier 3, depending on the role of the ship. So obviously with the Idris, the Kraken, the Javelin, things like that should be Tier 2. Long-haul exploration ships, like the Carrack and anything else in the future, that could be argued. But if the ship was designed and advertised with a Tier 2, it stays with a Tier 2 bed, and so on. Now, the reason why I say this is because with this ship as part of the fleet, the group that I'm in, the Idris isn't the medical facility, it's the Apollo ship, and eventually the Hope class Endeavour when that finally comes out. If this ship had the ability to be a hospital, why would I have any of the other ships? Because there'd be no need for them. And because all I would do is I would just put a C8R in this thing. Use that to go planetside. Then I've completely made every other hospital ship redundant in my case here. And it also means if I've got people who are wanting to do medical gameplay, I've restricted my entire medical doctors, so if I've got doctors, for example, if that becomes a gameplay loop, to basically one ship. There's no longer a dedicated medical ship. Because why would I bother? Now, that's how I see it. From my personal perspective, that's how I see it. I am looking at this as a fleet, group, org type deal. And the problem is too many people want to just do solo ops that do everything. And that's where a lot of these arguments seem to be coming from, is why can't I solo an Idris, for example? Well, you can, and you will be able to in the future, it's just not going to be great at it. You're going to be really at a disadvantage. And it shouldn't be able to be your home from home and do everything. So it shouldn't have the best medical, it shouldn't have the best cargo, it shouldn't have the best weapons, for example. If I want the best weapons, it should be a ship that's dedicated to the best weapons. So let's say, just for an example, before all the pitchforks and the torches get lit, let's say the Polaris. The Polaris is not a great capital ship. I think it still needs a bit of work. But with its torpedoes, it does damage. Its focus is get that damage out there. But it's not a brawler. It's also not a hospital ship. It's also not a carrier. And it shouldn't be. And that's where my argument seems to stem with a lot of this stuff. Same with fighters. There should never be the meta fighter. There should always be a reason for why you would take that one particular ship. Like, for an example, now none of this is from facts or anything like that, this is just me going to throw random names in here, so again, the pitchforks, put them back down. If I was to fly an atmosphere of a planet, let's say let's say we take the whole Genesis planetary tech into play here. So you've got the much better planets that we're going to be seeing in the future. I'm going to be doing lots of flying an atmosphere on a planet that is densely populated with jungles and things like that. So I'm going to be in atmosphere. It's going to be quite hot and humid and maybe not very pleasant in terms of the overall atmospheric environment. So it's very sticky and horrible. Maybe some ships might be better in that scenario than others. So when the new flight physics come in, where we've actually got atmospheric flight model, the Gladius might be better in this situation. Whereas the Hornet might absolutely suck. The F-8 might fly like a brick. But the roles might be completely reversed out of atmosphere. Or maybe in colder climates, like say on the poles, where the temperature is below freezing. Or maybe on moons, it's completely different again. That's what I think the game needs. It needs that balance of ships that do well in one place and ships that do well in another. And again, it's a bit of a tangent from what I kind of started at, but it does all revolve around the not every ship should be able to do everything. And that's how I see it. That's how I've planned the fleet that I've got. I've got Polaris, I've got Perseus, I've got Paladins, there's F7As, there's F8s, there's F7CMs, there's Gladiuses, there's Gladiators, there's, off the top of my head I can't remember, what else have I got in there, the Apollo Medevac, the Hercules M2, and it's not finished yet. That fleet is far from finished, but that is the fleet in which that I use with my organisation. And it's designed in such a way so that there's gameplay elements in each area, because not each ship should have the advantage of being the best. And I think that's what CIG should really start doing. All these people that say every ship should be kind of a go-to Swiss Army ship or anything like that, I honestly think CIG should just shoot them down and say, no, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's concepted, this is how it's advertised, this is how the ship's going to be. You want a medical ship that can do medical stuff, that can also carry a vehicle? Maybe CIG can make one. Let's take the Valkyrie chassis, for example. Maybe they do a medical variant of that, which is designed as gets in, drops the vehicle off, but can also do, maybe it's got a tier 3 bed or 2 tier 3 beds on board, and it is designed as your Kazovac ship. It's designed to land, drop off a NURSA or equivalent vehicle, do their thing, and then be able to bring them back on board, take them out of the NURSA from the tier 3 bed, put them into the tier 2 beds, or whatever, and stabilize them. That's what that should be able to do. But don't change ships to make them can do everything. If it can take a tier 1 bed, there should be a negative. In terms of this case, it can't carry cargo and it can't carry a vehicle. It can't carry cargo very easily and it can't carry a vehicle. If it was in a different situation where it was like, oh, it only had tier 3 beds, then maybe the argument could be made. But if it's going to excel, make it have a lot of sort of cons to go against those pros. Now again, I am just ranting. This is a completely unscripted rant, but hopefully, if anyone has anything to say on this, please put it in the comments below. Let's have a bit of a discussion on this. What is positive and negative about having ships that can do everything or one of something but very well? Or maybe ships where they're at the bottom of the pecking order. They're starter ships. They do well in its class in one thing, but that, like for example, a little Aurora, yes, it can do fighting, but if you were to put that up against an F8 with the same pilot, so before everyone goes, oh, the pilot's better, if it was the same pilot in the same situation, the F8 would be better than the Aurora, for an example. But anyway, that's me just ranting. I've had enough ranting. I've tried to make this video. I've spent about 3 hours trying to make this video because every time I tried to do it, it just never came out right. So hopefully this time it did. Hopefully this time you got through to the end. And if you did, what are your thoughts? Do you think there should be ships that can do everything and just have 5 ships in the whole of Star Citizen? Let's just have 5. You know, 1 mining ship, 1 combat ship, 1 carrier, 1 starter ship, and 1 cargo ship. You know, and 1 hospital ship or something like that. Just 1 of all that, and that's it. We have a completely boring universe with no ships. Or do we deliberately, granted, yeah, okay, it is kind of forced balancing to try and do this, but have ships that excel in certain areas and not in others to make players choose and decide what they're going to use for each scenario. So when you fly out there in the verse, in the future, when all these ships are out and flying, you go, oh, well, I know I'm going to be in atmosphere, so I'm going to take this ship because it's better. I know I'm going to be doing a mass casualty extraction, so I'm not going to bring a C8R. I'm going to go bring my Apollo Medevac, etc., etc. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'm going to wander this ship some more because I do like this Idris. It is a pretty cool ship. But yeah, if you've got any comments, put them in down below, have it with your thoughts and stuff, and let's have a conversation about it. And I'll see you in the next video, and maybe this time I'll actually put more thought into it and stop ranting. But I have been Jack, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.